Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Court Vision is now in session.
Welcome to Court Vision from New Roads Media.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Court Vision's back. Woo! We're here to talk NBA playoffs. So, before we start the playoff discussion, as you see, I am wearing my Spurs, Tim Duncan, and Tommy is as well. We did not at all talk about this ahead of time. Otherwise, Mongo probably would have his. Something interesting happened with the Spurs organization. So we'll have Tommy kick this episode off.
All right. Well, the big news is that Greg Popovich has stepped down as the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, and the new head coach is Mitch Johnson. Which
thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night. It's kind of crazy when as a Spurs fan who has basically grown up in the Popovich era, you're just used to seeing that crazy old man on the side of the court yelling at referees. So I prepared some things to say. I may not touch on everything I wrote, but
sure. Before you do jump into that, real quick, Popovich had a stroke, is what happened. For those of you who don't know, and he missed a majority of the season, and he's not entirely leaving the organization. He is becoming a full-time president of basketball operations, I think.
Yes. Yeah, president of basketball operations. I was going to get to that.
So he's still with the organization, which is awesome. So go ahead, Tommy.
All right. Well, what can be said about Coach Greg Popovich that hasn't been said before? Greg Popovich has been the glue to 5 championships Spurs teams and has coached some of the NBA's greatest talent. And is not just a fixture of Spurs culture, but is also a linchpin of San Antonio's Spurs-loving culture. Arguably the greatest coach of all time in any sport, his accolades are too numerous to count. But even off the court, Pop has been a beloved figure, both outspoken and subtle at the same time. His interactions with the media are iconic, and you could probably easily find highlight reels of just him talking to the media and saying whatever comes to his mind. His coaching legacy is deeply rooted in both the NBA and WNBA, where his coaching style and wisdoms continue to bring coaches success. But about as important as his basketball wisdom is his heart and his wisdom when it comes to people. Many players have spoken about how supportive he is when they are going through things, notably DeMar DeRozan, to name just one person. Not to mention Pop's ever-polarizing politics, especially so in Texas. And he never shies away from speaking his opinions on important social issues, even giving his opinion on presidential decisions, for better or for worse, depending on your perspective. There's never been a coach quite like Greg Popovich, who was initially looked at with concern and disapproval after he took over as head coach, but quickly became beloved in his approach to coaching, taking on greats like David Robinson, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard, and of course, Tim Duncan. He is a man of wisdom and humor, and his presence on the court will be missed, but his retirement is more than deserved. Of course, he's not retiring, he's just moving into a new position, but we'll call it a retirement. Are you guys still there?
We gave you the floor, buddy.
I couldn't even tell if you guys were still there.
No, I figured.
Thank you, Coach Pop, for an amazing career as the San Antonio Spurs head coach, and enjoy your new gig as El Jefe. And shout out to the infamously hilarious Hack-a-Shack play. You guys know the one.
It's a classic moment for sure. That's been popping up everywhere.
Go Spurs, go.
Now that that's out of the way, obviously it's sad in one way to see a great coach go out in this way. Obviously, it would have been preferred if he was able to go out on his. I mean, he technically went out on his own terms, but like actually went out on his own terms, right? Where like he was able to step away when he felt ready to. He was, if it wasn't for the stroke, he most likely would have been at least coaching one more year for them. And I don't. For those of you who watched the speeches the speech he did with the El Jefe shirt, Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili were with him at his side. They were apparently with him through all of his treatment and his rehab, which is awesome. So that's great. It's he touched players beyond just basketball, which is fantastic. That's all we can hope for in life, is whatever your work is that not only do you impact your job, but you also impact outside of it. And he certainly has. And it's fantastic. And it's nice that his legacy is not entirely over. He gets to still continue with this organization. He still has, can still collect more rings. Greatest coach of this generation. Is he the winningest regular season coach?
He is.
And he's third, I think, in the postseason wins, or fourth, something like that. He's top 5.
Yeah, he's third, yeah.
And congratulations on a wonderful career. And what's your thoughts? We have to do it. What's your thoughts on the new coach?
Should I go first?
This is all you.
Okay. All right. So, as you guys both know, I initially reacted, not pleased with the decision to elevate Mitch Johnson. I had felt maybe he wasn't ready, considering how, things went quite often. Interesting decisions made on the court, people benched when they should be on the court playing. But I took a step back and thought about it from, if I were Coach Pop, I've put my trust in this guy. Even after watching him coach half a season, I believe that he's the successor. And admittedly, yes, there were other coaches that the Spurs could have talked to, championship winning ones. But if this is the guy Pop likes and the guy Wemby and the team like, I'm behind it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is important. I'm guessing that Wemby, liked him as a coach enough, because they may not because he's still so young and new, but they may not have asked him, but they probably asked the players, in the exit interviews, what they thought of him as a coach, right? Like that's just part of the exit interviews.
Oh,
and he most likely spoke positively, because if he spoke negatively, there's absolutely no way they brought him, right?
Yeah.
So that's at least he has at least a player, at least one player behind him, most likely more than one. Spurs also did get their second in a row Rookie of the Year.
Congrats, Steph Castle.
Which is pretty awesome. And they have a chance at the number 1 overall pick again.
And potentially another Rookie of the Year.
Or they could use that as trade bait to go get Giannis. I think that would be pretty enticing, right? If you have a choice,
absolutely.
If the Spurs are looking at Giannis, right? If you're the Bucks and the Spurs get the first overall pick, or even the top 3 pick, and they take that top 3 pick and they package it with a couple of other things, that sounds pretty nice, especially seeing you don't know what the future of this team is, especially with Dame being out hurt with a torn Achilles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be interesting. Mongo, you've been quiet.
Yeah, regarding Greg Popovich, I'll just say, a couple things. Tied for most coach of the years with Don Nelson and Pat Riley. And that's going to be important in just a minute here when we talk about, Mitch Johnson. I think a fascinating stat. He coached 4 All-Star games, which is, goes to the coach with the winningest record at the time, which, for context, 5 NBA championships, meaning he wasn't always the 65-win front runner. If you have more championships than All-Star game, coaching appearances, you're not always winning with the best team. You're not always winning from the 1 seed. You're finding ways to get it done. And the most unique part of that is 4 of his 5 championships were in years he didn't coach the All-Star game, meaning he was always finding ways. He wasn't necessarily winning as many games as the Lakers or as other teams, but was finding ways to get it done when it mattered. And in terms of the sort of legacy with Mitch Johnson, again, you think about, the guys I mentioned before, Don Nelson and Riley, I mean, definitely have some turmoil and some scrutiny attached to them. I mean, for context, 2 guys who are not particularly welcome in Madison Square Garden ever again. I mean, they scorched earth in many places they went. That's not Pop. Say what you want about controversy, say what you want about hot takes. But, he stayed in one place and he's beloved there, and in that sense, the comparison would have to be Bill Belichick, to be quite honest, in terms of both greatness and longevity. And so the only problem is you look at, Gerard Mayo, you look at what they did there with Belichick basically, grooming and handing over the reins. And, you got to be a little bit concerned, just because recent history, would suggest 0 for 1. But with that being said, Pop knows what needs to be done in San Antonio better than anybody. I mean, I'm sure he's factoring in culture just as much as he's factoring in ability. But, if you're, just kind of looking for any sort of natural hesitation, it's probably how wrong things went on the coaching tree in New England right away.
I will say this. One of the differences, and is that if you look at Bill Belichick's coaching tree and coaches who've left to go coach elsewhere, not a lot of them have had success. But with Popovich, his coaches that leave do seem to have success. So at least that's the silver lining to me.
My only counter argument there is look at the history of veterans, the players the Patriots have gotten rid of, right? The Patriots are not afraid to get rid of someone they know isn't the answer. The fact that they kept Gerard Mayo suggests that they thought he was better than all those other guys, all those other veteran players, everything else, and you look at, that fact alone, they would have been fine moving on from him. I mean, they would have traded him to the Browns for a 6th rounder like they did for Jamie Collins every 2 years. They weren't afraid to move on from someone if they didn't believe in him. And so, they clearly, felt differently about him than the other ones because they were, yeah, I agree with you. The track record wasn't great, but it seemed to be, more intentional that they were getting rid of those guys because they knew they weren't going to be greatness in New England. They actually thought Gerard Mayo would be.
That's fair. That's fair. But I am a bit surprised because there was other coaches from his coaching tree that were available. That surprised me a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm also a little bit surprised that they didn't, and maybe they did behind closed doors, and I don't know, that they didn't try to reach out to Becky and see if they could pry her.
Becky Hammond, by the way, if you're not a avid Spurs fan following this combo.
See if they could take her away from the Aces. And maybe that did happen behind closed doors. Well, I have no idea, right? No, I'm not there. And that, but time will tell, right? I mean, that's all we can say. He did, what was his final record in once he was the official interim coach? Was it? I don't know what was the record. Do you know what it was, Tommy, from last year?
I don't.
Kevin's not. Kevin will be on shortly, and he.
We'll task him with that as soon as he's on here.
Yeah, but I mean, I get it, right? Like if he's liked enough by the players, he did a good enough job. It doesn't make sense to potentially abandon it for a coach, even though they're part of the same tree. Like they've been out of it for a while, I mean, like that's a big ask, especially seeing you have a young superstar and another young talented player in Castle that you want to make sure are built around correctly. And if they both fit in with who you have, then it makes sense. And he did do a good enough job. So
one of the best things
I don't know how quick they'll be. Sure. I'm not sure how quick they'll be to if it's not successful, how quick they'll be to pull the trigger on finding someone else. I don't know if they don't seem like an organization that'd be quick to doing that, right? Like, but I don't know. I really don't know. They've had Popovich since like the middle of the 90s, right? Is when he became the head coach or something like that.
I think 96.
Yeah.
think.
So like he's been and it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward with the Spurs. But time will tell. Are we ready to talk playoffs?
Sure. Real quick, I just want to add there seem to be some apparently when you're interim medically, there are some different definitions of what is what. ESPN has Johnson at gives him credit for everything last year. They put him at no, they don't. They give him at 31-45. NBA.com puts him at 32-45. And StatMuse puts his official record at 10-18, which, if you extrapolate, is almost the same. But it's a slightly, it would be about a 350, 400 winning percentage. Either way, under 500 by all accounts.
Well, I mean, it's still not bad for what that team was, right? Like, and they lost Victor.
Yeah, they clearly were digging for higher draft picks at the end of the year. I mean, I don't blame them at all.
Right.
Definitely not, something you should necessarily go off of it. And honestly, there's 1,000 business professors, business books, business theories out there that would tell you actually want to see, what he does, how he handles his first 6-game losing streak. How he handles his first losing season, how he handles the first time one of his young players, attacks the media when they blow a big lead, something of that nature. So, record this early on is fairly meaningless with all that being said.
That's also true, though, what you said there. That makes a lot. That's actually, that does hold a lot of value. All right. Let's go into the playoffs. We'll talk first round, and then we'll talk a little bit about the beginning of the second round. We'll start west and head east. OKC Thunder handled the Grizzlies like it was nothing. Swept them 4-0. Minnesota upset the Lakers 4-1. Nuggets beat the Clippers in a 7-game series. Rockets lose to the Warriors in a 7-game series, which I believe all of us had them beating them. We did. I'm pretty sure of it.
Listen, yeah. I'll just say it. I went 8 for 8. I'm aware that I'm not looking great in the second round, but I was perfect in the first round. So yeah, I had it.
So I mean, I'm definitely not surprised by the outcome of really any of these. 100% knew that the Thunder were gonna beat the Grizzlies in a sweep. The Grizzlies were falling apart. They had injury issues. They had Ja Morant issues. They had head coach issues.
When aren't they having Ja Morant?
They had all the issues. They went from the 4th seed to the 8th seed in a matter of like 2 weeks. So happens, and not surprised. Lakers, Timberwolves, I'm a bit surprised that it only went 5 games. I thought there would have been a little bit more fight from the Lakers. Mongo did convince me in the last episode that I had not hitched my horse to the Lakers, and I'm glad I listened to him.
Yeah, it just made sense. I mean, I'm not surprised by the number there because, hey, listen, JJ Redick coached a lot better than a lot of people thought, but Minnesota just matches up so well against the Lakers that it was going to require some crafty coaching to not make it that ugly. And JJ Redick's just not there yet. And that's okay. He's a first-year coach coaching, multiple all-world players. That takes time. I get that. But combining that with the fact that, the Anthony Edwards era has arrived. I mean, he's the top 4, player, I'll hear the argument for top 3. I'll hear no argument beyond about top 6. I mean, he's great. And that's, we know the legends and the, historically have won this thing. The greatest players in the NBA are going to have the advantage in the playoffs always.
That's true. And let's be honest, the Rockets did not stand a chance. It went 7, but that, part of that was Jimmy Butler injury, and just the Warriors they're old.
Experience mattered in that series. I said it all along. Shout out to our buddy Hugo, who's done the show with us a couple times. He's a huge Rockets fan. And he basically said if the Rockets were not up by more than 20, 25 at any, given halftime, they never had a chance in a close second half. And he was, pretty spot on about that. You're not going to outsmart the Warriors at this point, especially when you're like, again, one of these guys I can't stand, so I'll gladly poke fun at him. But, when your veterans are Dylan Brooks and Steven Adams, Steven Adams played great, good on him. But, you're not going, tactical blow for blow, when one team has, 4 guys who have at least, or 3 guys who have been at least, put in the same sentence as the Hall of Fame, and you have Dylan Brooks as your fearless leader. Like, it's not going to end well. I'm sorry. It's never going to end well.
That's fair. Let's switch over to the Eastern Conference. Cavs handled the Heat in a 4-game sweep. Again, no one's surprised there. The Cavs were dominant all season long. The Heat were blessed to be in the playoffs by the NBA gods. And they were just they didn't show up. They lost the last game 138 to 83. Yeah. So yeah, they gave up. And something's gonna happen, right? Like they're gonna have to do some sort of shake up this offseason if they want to either go for a full rebuild, or I don't even know how you build up from this roster, right? Like they just don't have draft picks. They don't have unless they're trading Bam, which again makes it difficult to continue.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what their direction will be.
I'll tell you, Khalil Ware looked very good towards the back half of the season. Losing that young kid Jovic was tough. I mean, he went down and he's going to be out for a while, into next year. But he was looking pretty good, and he's definitely a starting forward for this team. Tyler Hero showed he can straight up ball. Miami's an attractive place. I mean, it's a nice place to live. They can easily attract a veteran there. But they do have some pieces in place. Bear in mind also, I know divisions don't mean as much in basketball as they do in pretty much every other sport. But, if you're an assistant coach, if you're a player who's under some scrutiny, if you're anything, the best deodorant is being in the same division as Charlotte, being in the same division as Washington. I mean, you're never going to look bad in the Southeast. It just is what it is. So it's, it's not a bad place to attract veterans. I think they'll be okay in the long run. Again, I mean, we'll talk about the second round here in a moment, but Boston looking certainly beatable, Milwaukee looking old. The Knicks, Cleveland have their, fair faults. You want to come to the East. I mean, if you're a free agent, if you're a disgruntled veteran looking to get traded, the East would be the way to go. So I think, there's not, you don't need to be great in the East to be able to make a run. And it's definitely the more attractive side. So I think we'll see them figure it out. They're a very well-run organization in terms of, the veteran experience they have on their coaching staff and their front office. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, but I think they'll come out okay. They have some good young pieces there.
That's fair. I mean, I think they're the front runner for Kevin Durant, right?
Why not? Someone has to be.
I mean, yeah, okay, sounds good. Bucks, Pacers won in 4. Bucks just unfortunate with Dame's injury, Kyle Kuzma being Kyle Kuzma, and just Giannis having to carry this team all by himself. He did the best he could.
Buddy,
whether or not he comes back is up in the air. Is it is what it is. Allegedly, and this is allegedly. This is there's no fact to this. Recently, it came out that if he were to be traded, he would prefer either New York, LA, or Miami, which again is one of the teams you did mention. How true is that? I have no idea.
I feel like that comes out with like
and if it's LA, it's apparently it would be the Lakers, and New York would most likely be the Knicks. And obviously Miami, there's only one team in Miami, unless he's going to go play for the Dolphins, which would be an interesting intersport trade, and we've never seen that before. Oh, that's probably not true, but we haven't seen that in a very long time at all.
Hey,
Kevin, can you research that? Has there been an intersport trade before?
Intersport trade. Okay. Good evening.
Yeah, welcome, Kevin. Welcome, David. Now go find a stupid fact.
What do you guys take away from that series? I mean, it was just like bad injury timing, and not that for why it went to 5 games, right? Like you pretty much were certain there, Mongo. I was not, that the Bucks were going to win. Oh, sorry, we're going to lose. Are you surprised it only went 5, other than just because of injury?
Yeah, not really. I mean, that was one team. I mean, you see the Pacers. The Pacers are basically the Western Conference of the 90s, right? In the Western Conference, for my younger listeners out there, you would always see the Sonics win 63 games and then disappear in the first round, and the Suns win 58 games and disappear in the first round. You had a lot of teams who were trying way harder in the regular season. The Pacers are seem to be the opposite. I mean, they got real hot in the second half of the season, but they know what they want to do in the playoffs. They want to just exhaust you. They want to bully you. They want to leave no doubt, and they show it. And so when Milwaukee literally just couldn't throw a punch back, I mean, it was going to get pretty ugly pretty quick. It is very interesting. I think Milwaukee, to me, we talked about Miami. I think Milwaukee is, an even more curious team because, if Cleveland bows out here in this round, they're not 100% healthy. Boston, I mean, it's real easy to just look at Boston if they don't win it all and say, or represent the East in the finals and say, well, you can't win it every year, right? The Knicks are already, in a sense, playing with house money. Miami, we talked about, before Kevin came on here. To me, Milwaukee is the one team that you look at and go, this is 0% sustainable. Something has to change.
There's nothing there.
And
there's nothing there to sustain.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Well said, Kevin. And so, to me, they're the more fascinating team. And as an, we're all human. We all have at least a slight inherent agent of chaos in us. Milwaukee getting blasted is actually in a way good for the league, and good for, at least anyone who believes that stagnancy is not good for the league, because, this should force the hand of somebody to do something here.
That's fair. Tommy?
I mean, I did say that I had the Pacers beating the Bucks first round, and I was right.
That's fair.
Did it happen did it happen sooner than you expected, or did you think it was going to take 5 games?
I thought it was going to take 5 or 6 games. 4 was surprising. But I mean, the Bucks were plagued with injuries. I feel like if they were a more healthy Bucks team, I think we'd be having a very different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Kuzma might as well have been injured the way he was playing.
What's a Kyle Kuzma? I don't know what that is.
I mean, that's the danger of relying on a deadline trade, right? If you don't settle into normalcy quick, this is going to happen naturally. And this is the worst way for it to happen, right? Because of injuries, everyone's role had to change. Now he's already in an unfamiliar setting, already on an unfamiliar team, and he's trying to adjust to a new setting. I mean,
on the fly.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, we're going to pick on Kyle Kuzma here because, stats are stats. But there are very few people who you could argue this would have not happened to. I mean, this is fairly, uncommon. Plus, I mean, with all due respect, I mean, if you're on the Wizards, you're probably assuming you're getting traded, but Kyle Kuzma wasn't particularly, I'm sure he had his, vacation plans already planned out way back in November. It's not like he was committed to this team long-term to begin with. So, it's not surprising to see him disappear. Obviously, older team, injuries, not surprising. I mean, so at the end of the day, hindsight's 2020. I get that, but you look at all the reasons that the Bucks could have, caved in on themselves, and none of them were individually surprising.
I don't think there's a lot of in-season trades that work out. The only one that's coming to mind is Rasheed Wallace in 2004 when he got traded to the Pistons and they finally won a title. But I'm struggling to think of in-season trade that led to a title.
Well, we have one potentially happening out west right now.
Okay. But it hasn't happened yet. I'm just saying that in terms of
but you can make an argument that not necessarily for a championship, because obviously that won't be determined till the end. But this Jimmy Butler to Golden State was huge, right? Like,
oh yeah,
that changed the team. The team was looking very inconsistent, and then once he got there,
its last leg.
Yeah, the team that trade definitely to me could be in that category, even if they don't win a championship this year from it. But that's just me.
Stars, by the
what
way,
do you think?
Sorry, real quick. Stars are going to be a little bit different, by the way, always, which to Kevin's point, how often does a star get traded? These stars play together in the All-Star game. They play together in the Olympics, the Pan Am games, all that stuff. A lot of them grow up playing together on, junior Y teams together. And so, it's not, Jimmy Butler going and playing with, a handful of All-Stars in Golden State. He has more familiarity with them than, say, Kyle Kuzma, going and running, with the Bucks second unit. I mean, that's
you mean fashion icon Kyle Kuzma.
Fashion icon
Kyle Kuzma is catching.
But there is sort of that fairly obvious caveat to just to why Kevin's stat still holds even in the wake of and even with stars. I mean, listen, I joked about it, but facts are facts. At the end of the day, the Mavs and the Lakers had the same number of postseason wins this year. So much for Luka immediately coming in and collecting rings, right? So I mean, it's not easy anywhere, but especially for the B minus list player. With all due respect to Kyle Kuzma, he's not an all-star. He's not an A+ player. Those are the guys who are expected to be earth movers at the deadline. Who usually get overpaid for at the deadline, and those are not the guys who it's easy for. I mean, those are the guys who it's harder for. They got to figure out a new role, a new team, and guys they're usually unfamiliar with, unless they're a guy who's a bit of a journeyman, like how Thad Young used to get traded seemingly every February, and he would always blend right in. But he also played for about 45 teams in his career, so it was a little bit easier for him to find someone he knew.
That's fair. What are your guys' thoughts before we continue this? For the Bucks, right? Like, obviously they have Dame being out probably a majority of next season is a big hit. Do they cave to the pressure and trade Giannis? Do they try to? I mean, they don't have cap space. They don't have picks. I don't know what they can do, right? Like, Kyle Kuzma not performing makes it so he's not a tradable asset, or much more difficult asset to trade. Correct.
Correct. Sorry. We're laughing at Kevin. Just looked up. It's 8 teams for Thaddeus Young. It's wild how close my facetious rant there got.
Isn't that his number too?
Might have been at some point. I mean, you play for 8 teams, you probably found a common number at some point. Anyway, to answer your question, listen, they're a pretty smart franchise. They also are not a franchise who has a history of turning the engine over. They've had their fair share of disasters in between successes. They don't want to necessarily go to complete zero, but at the same time, they're going to listen. They're going to look. They recognize that this is not sustainable. And the last thing you can do is not let Giannis, cash in one more time. Whether it's a ring or whether it's pieces when you move on, and it's looking more and more like Giannis will not win another ring in Milwaukee. So you can't let him age out on you, and you can't let him leave in any sort of free agency. So you are going to have to make a move. And then, logic kicks in that the sooner you move him, the more he's worth. So they're going to listen. They're not going to get desperate. We in the media will call it blowing it up, because when you let a star go, that's our definition of blowing it up. But it's not a fire sale. I think that's the best discrepancy. You're not going to see them trade Kyle Kuzma, for a conditional second in the offseason, something of that nature. They're gonna be smart about it. But I think at this point, it's rare that a team that finishes in the top 6 in their division is, in their conference, is a universal seller. But I think you have to call the Bucks a seller at this point until further notice.
I mean, losing your second best player for probably at least half the season, upcoming seasons, definitely puts a damper on that. And they just don't have cap flexibility, and they don't have assets. It's unfortunate, because I think that I don't know if they ever got a fair shake with Dame and Giannis together. And you kind of can see it coming, because Dame did have injury issues at the end of his time in Portland. So it's a bit unfortunate. Obviously, this type of injury you can't predict. Let's talk Knicks Pistons. Let's go Celtics Magic. That went 5.
In the interest of time, can we just lump these together? Was anyone surprised by anything else in the East? Can we just
there's one thing I was
gave
surprised.
everyone a heart attack. Right.
There's one thing I was surprised in Knicks Pistons.
Go ahead, Kevin.
The floor gave way in Game 5 and caused that ridiculous Brunson turn of the ankle, which was part of the problem why Brunson and Hart had to be taken out on the same play. On the same timeout, because Hart was injured the play before. Brunson, the floor just like gave out on him. If you saw the replay, you just saw the floor go like this, and then you see Brunson's ankle turn, and then Thibodeau had to use the second to last timeout to get both of them out of the game, and then he was trying to save his last timeout for an inbounds play or whatever at end of game situation, and it was unfortunate that Brunson and Hart missed 2.5 minutes of Game 5 when that easily their re-entry into the game could have changed things had they been able to re-enter the game sooner. That is. That's the only thing that surprised me. But in terms of the overall result, I don't think I was really surprised. I thought that the Knicks would struggle, but I thought that they would find a way, somehow, some way, to prevail against the Pistons. I just wasn't sure at the beginning of the series how they were going to do it.
I mean, when the shocking twist is that the floor was unreliable, you know why I said, can we just move on to the second round? But with that being said, Corey, to where you were about to go with your comment, I think, I'll just say this. When we talk football, with John or when I'm with Ugo, we talk about the fact that you necessarily don't want to be the team that comes in on the 13-game winning streak, number 1 seed, like Peyton Manning did all those years. You want that testedness, you want that grit, and I'm as a Knick fan, I have to be happy that it wasn't, pretty. Now, again, I'm definitely not thrilled with how that penultimate game in the series ended. There definitely was some sloppiness. They basically just caught lightning in a bottle to even win Game 1 in the first place. I mean, there were some questions, but at the same time, we'll talk about it in a minute. You could make an argument that their wins in the second round were even more ridiculous than their losses in the first round. But you want to be that battle-tested team. If you're Boston or Cleveland, you're not necessarily fully awake yet in the second round. If you're the Knicks, if you're the Nuggets, if you're the Warriors, listen, it's real. It is go time. There is no looking back. You've been woken up already. And so those tend to be the more dangerous teams, when you really get into the thick of the weeds here. And so I am in that sense kind of glad how it happened. But at the end of the day, yeah, the lethargy, in some moments did surprise me, but the end result, I'm with Kevin. You look at, listen, you guys know I'm not great at picks. I went 8-0 in the first round. Like if I'm going 8 for 8, it wasn't that hard to see this coming. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I'm pretty sure we all had the Knicks winning. I think I was 7 for 8. The only one I was wrong on was the Bucks, which I think was closer than it ended up being because of injuries. But I think all of us did pretty good because you are right. It was pretty easy to see. Now moving on to the second round, it's been interesting. Up until last night, all the home teams
lost
every game. And then last night, the Thunder broke it by manhandling the Nuggets and showing why they were the number 1 seed in the West. Timberwolves Warriors is tied at 1 game. Warriors are up 1-0 over, but that will. I think you can see. I could see the Warriors. I don't know. I don't know what to say with that one. I'm gonna skip it. What are your guys' thoughts on those teams before we move to East, where spicy is?
Listen, that Steph Curry injury is detrimental. I thought the Wolves were going to win this series. Listen, you guys know my take. I thought the winner of this Wolves-Warriors series represents the West, but I do think the Wolves come out of it. I'll stand by it. Anthony Edwards is taking over the league by storm, and so honestly, this would have been a case where a Butler injury would have been better than a Curry injury, because you want Curry to be able to go shot for shot with Edwards, and that's going to be trouble. He's at least missing 3 games. And this thing could be over before Curry has any chance of saving it, even if he does get back. So I liked the Wolves all along. I'll stand by it. Listen, I had the Nuggets beating the Thunder. I stand by it, but listen, no disrespect to the Thunder, but at the same time, a blowout of that proportion has just as much to do with the fact, hey, remember the time the Nuggets don't truly have a head coach? Like they don't necessarily know how to right a ship anymore. They are literally just rudderless. So you're gonna see that from a team that fired its coach, whatever it is, 96% of the way through the season, whatever the math comes out to, if I'm a Nugget fan, I'm arguably, out of the 8 teams left, they're the last team that worries me if I lose a game by 90, because they shouldn't know how to stop the bleeding when that happens in a game. They're coachless. So no major surprises over in the West. The biggest disappointment, is that it's not going to be a fully healthy Warriors Wolves series, because I thought that was going to be a great bloodbath to watch. Excuse me.
It would have been.
But I expected the 2 series in the West to go a little bit longer either way. So seeing the Thunder and Nuggets already guaranteed to go 5, seeing the Warriors are not going to sweep the Wolves. So them winning 1 is good for the longevity. No immediate surprises left. Kevin, hey, not bad for me. Kevin informs me it was 96.3% of the way through the season. I'm on fire today.
I'm not surprised, Mr. Mathematician over there.
I was pretty quick. But yeah,
don't play it off as though you don't know math really well.
No surprises for me in the West, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think at this point, unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult for the Warriors. However, it does mean there's a good chance Draymond's going to go crazy on Rudy Gobert.
Oh, I'm never mad about that. That's always it. That's entertainment.
Oh man, not Draymond.
I think the only thing that surprised me
NBA's
was
2 biggest villains. Well, 2 of the 3. Dylan Brooks is number 2 probably, or 1.
Dylan Brooks is like the shocker. He's not really a villain. He's just a goofball.
When he takes out your player,
Marvel reference for those who don't know.
Yeah, Mongo. Yeah, family show.
Yeah,
Actually,
Mongo. I was not. You are way
Family
off
show.
where I
Move
was.
on.
what surprised me was that I actually watched the first game of Warriors. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm choking up here. I actually watched the first game of Warriors Timberwolves part of the way until the Steph Curry injury and a little bit after that. And I actually turned it off because A, I had to go to sleep because it was getting late and I had an early meeting in the morning. But more importantly, B, I did not think that the Warriors were going to win that game. So I thought the Timberwolves were going to blow that game out. So the fact that the Warriors won that game actually surprised me and gives me a little bit of hope. Not a lot of hope, but maybe, just maybe. I don't necessarily think they'll win the series, but I don't think it's good. I think the Timberwolves are going to be in some serious trouble if they couldn't even beat a team in game 1 that lost Steph Curry in the second quarter of the game. So that gives me some pause for concern. Maybe not for this series, but in terms of the Timberwolves winning in the next round, I have some serious doubts as to whether they will get I'm assuming that they're going to find a way somehow to win the second round, but I don't think they're going to get any further than the Western Conference Finals. Due to what I saw.
Fair
enough. Let's go to the East where things are crazy. A bit of a surprise, but also not really. Cavs are down 2 games to nothing to the Pacers. The reason why I say not really is the Cavs have struggled when they've been in the playoffs the past few years, right? They got and their Mongo was hinting at throughout the season that this team was not necessarily as good as their record. And I think that it's showing now. And I don't know if any of us can really argue what Mongo said was too crazy. Can they still win the series? Absolutely. Are they going to win the series? I'm not confident. The Pacers are a very physical team. Cavs are already dealing with injuries after game 1 and now game 2. It's crazy to see them, get I mean, they're close. It's not like they were being blown out or anything, but it's a bit. You as a Cavs fan, you got to be disappointed in how your team's performed the first two games. But also, your team was the best in the East for a reason. Don't get your do get your hope. Do get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes. It's not about hope. Don't get your knickers in a twist. Is what I was trying to think of. The season's not over. It might feel like it, but it's not over, and that's my feelings on the Knicks as well. I'm so happy they're up 2-0, but it's not over till it's over.
I'm looking forward to us capturing the soundbite of Kilroy just going, "It's not about hope." But more importantly, listen, I'm very excited that I'm halfway to looking very right about the Cavs, but don't downplay these injuries. I mean, this is ugly. And I mean, even you got Donovan Mitchell, nursing, I think it might be an ankle coming in. It was something in the lower body. But you're absolutely right, Corey. The Pacers are not the team you can nurse yourself back to. Whatever is hurting you is going to hurt more after each game you play against the Pacers. So these guys missing games are, if they could miss, let's just make up something. DeAndre Hunter's injury could normally miss you 2 to 5 games. Listen, it's the playoffs. He's missing that too. You're missing the minimum. But the Pacers are not the team you want to come back on short rest. It's so the Cavs are in a rough spot. I still don't think. Sorry, Cavs fans. I still don't think they were going much further than this. And, other than the diehard Cav fans out there, we're not going to look back at these playoffs in 20 years and remember DeAndre Hunter was injured. We're not going to remember who DeAndre Hunter was. So in the grand scheme of things, this Cav team was still not built to win it all. If they were, they'd be able to overcome anything, right? That's what championship teams do. But if we were at a bar with a Cavs fan and they were arguing, about injuries, I wouldn't be playing the tiny violin here. I'd be saying, no, you have a fair argument here. This is an impossible situation to be banged up and trying to go toe to toe with the Pacers. It was a calf injury. Thank you, Kevin. Donovan Mitchell calf injury. Sorry.
That's fair.
One might say they set the pace.
Boo.
It's not about hope.
It's not about.
Did I really say that? I don't remember saying that.
You said get your hopes up or get your hopes down. I don't know. It's not about hope. Don't get your twist. That was your exact quote, Kilroy. In one of the most wild, emotional roller coasters we have ever seen in sports media history.
I will say this.
If you're listening right now, go back to about the 43-minute mark real quick. We'll wait. We'll sit here a second.
I'll make sure once this is posted that I clip it and post it on Facebook.
I will say this as Kilroy recovers over there in the top left, that the road team winning the first 2 games in the series, I did see an interesting stat, courtesy of the Knicks telecast on postgame on MSG, that road teams 2-0 have converted only 30 of the 35 times this has happened to win the series. So for the teams that are down 0-2 who now have to travel to Indiana and New York respectively, you do still have a little bit of hope. This isn't the 0-3 scenario where in the NBA nobody's done 0-3 before. But so there is still a little bit of hope. Not a lot of hope, but a little bit of hope because there is past history. And in the Celtics case, I will say that even though you were down 0-3 to the Heat a couple of years ago, you did manage to force a Game 7. So there's still a little bit of that hope in there. And you just never know. Sometimes it could happen in Game 7. I will say though, I was disappointed with the Cavaliers, even though they were all injured, blah, 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 blah. They had a 7-point lead with about 50 seconds left, and they just folded. It just seems like they did everything they could to give that game away. No matter who was left on the court, you should still be able to find a way up 7 points, 50 seconds left to seal the deal. And I remember I watched that game, and as soon as I saw the Pacers miss the free throw and then get the rebound, I'm like, Halliburton's going to hit a 3-pointer right then and there, and sure enough, he did. So it was really disappointing to see, but I think that for the Cavaliers, there's still a little bit of hope if they can just get one. This is what they should do: just focus on Game 3, focus on winning Game 3 right then and right, focus on that. Get yourself back into this series slowly and surely. They still have a small chance of, doing something in the series. But they need to win Game 3. If they don't win Game 3, I definitely don't see them even forcing a Game 7, let alone winning the series. So, but focus on Game 3 and then win Game 3, and then hopefully you can turn the tails starting with that Game 3 win.
And Kevin's advice for the Celtics is to not focus on Game 3, and that's Kevin's advice for the Celtics. Do not focus on Game 3. Game 3 is not something you should worry about. Buddy. Just don't worry. Be
nice. I'm not trying to demean Celtics fans here. We were on the Cavs Pacers, so I was just trying to point that out. You obviously have a similar situation with New York and Boston. Although I think the New York Boston series has been crazier, just in terms of the Knicks fall behind by 20 points in the third quarter in Game 1, and then find a way to come back, take the lead, get into overtime, and then win Game 1. Defensive stop Mikal Bridges. They do the same thing, slightly worse in Game 2. They fall behind by 20 points closer to the end of the third quarter, and then all of a sudden they come storming back. What was interesting to see in the Celtics series so far, aside from the fact that Boston has made 25% of their 3-pointers. Hands up if you had that before the series. Put your hands down. You're lying your butts off.
But
nobody had Boston making 25% of their 3-pointers. But the interesting thing is that I've been really impressed with from the Knicks side how they've been playing, because it seems like that Detroit series where they had to fight and claw and find any which way to win in the Detroit series. I think that battle tested really helped them out in the first 2 games for the Knicks Celtics, because it seems like as soon as the Knicks get it to within 5 points with 5 minutes to go, it just seems like they know what they want to do. They do whatever they want to do, even in the instance that they miss a shot, they come up with some key offensive rebound and then just go ahead and stick back another shot. So, and it seems like Boston's been the opposite way, where I don't think they got enough tests in the regular season, and I don't think the Orlando Magic tested them enough, where the Boston Celtics didn't really struggle too much against the Magic, and it just seems like they don't seem to be really prepared to stay the course in the last 5 minutes of these games so far. Now we all know that can change, because the series now shifts to New York, and for all the good the Knicks have done in the road, 5 straight road wins, which they've never done before in team playoff history, courtesy of the MSG telecast that I saw. Right now in this playoffs so far, they've only won 1 of the 3 games in New York. So it's definitely not over by a long shot, so Boston still has a chance, and they just need to play a lot better, especially in the fourth quarter. When the game is close, the Boston Celtics just need to play a lot more cohesively, and just try not to fold too much. And they still I think would have a shot to win if they don't just fold.
I will say what surprised me the most about Game 2 was a combined 25 free throw attempts between the 2 teams. That's crazy. That's such a small amount.
That's a decent day for Giannis.
And that's for all those people who are saying Jalen Brunson's a flopper.
Well,
the Knicks had 10. 10. And as a whole team, they had 10.
When threes are getting shot at historic rates, unless you're lunging yourself at shooters, you're not going to have fouls. And if you're the Knicks, you know, if you're the Knicks, you're not going to change anything. You know, if you lose game 3 because Boston catches fire, okay, fine. You know, it's going to happen because it happened the wrong way twice, right? The ball's going to bounce the way it's going to bounce. But if you're Boston, you're thinking about how do we get more aggressive about this, you know, and in that sense, you know, traditionally, Kevin, to what you were just saying, listen, Knick fans, you know what I mean when I say this. You're a great fan group, you're a great audience, but Madison Square Garden traditionally not a true home field advantage because so many stars, so many legends have come there and just want to make their mark on it. And so if you are Boston, it's going to require some great coaching up there to convince those guys, listen, we need to try and win a scrappy game at Madison Square Garden because that is not historically what stars want to do. They want to come in and drop 80 points. They want to come in and hit that big 3. They want to come in and be legendary. They don't want to
pull the choke sign.
Right. They don't want to win a grueling battle. So in this case, coming back to New York is almost, you know, it's going to be, you know, tempting to Boston. You know, it's going to help the Knicks in the long run where usually it's a disadvantage. Now, with that being said, I still have the Celtics in 5 somehow. But I think, you know, as a Knick fan who will naturally be harder on this team, it's one of the most helpful home field advantages we've had in a long time.
I will criticize one thing from game 2. I did not like, from the Boston perspective, that is, I did not like Boston. Boston had 2 team fouls in the 2.5 minute mark, let's say 2.5 minute mark, whatever that 2 minute something was. They fouled Mitchell Robinson intentionally away from the play. And then Tom Thibodeau, credits to much maligned Tom Thibodeau. What does he do? He leaves Mitchell Robinson in the game. He's like, go ahead, try that again. Boston fouls him again. So now the team foul situation is 4 team fouls. Then Tom Thibodeau takes him out and puts in OG Anunoby. The reason I did not like that was because I did not think it was necessary to just automatically inflate your fouls to try the hack-a-Mitch strategy again. Because you know that Tom Thibodeau's going to wait until you get to the bonus or wait till you get just before the bonus and then take him out. I just did not think that was a prudent usage of fouls where I think they could have used that foul later on when, let me see, I think it was Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday fouled Jalen Brunson. I don't think there was a foul between the hack-a-Mitch and the Jalen Brunson foul. I think that was still shooting foul, so that he might still have been shooting free throws. But I'm just saying that, like, just in terms of tactics, I did not like that advancing your foul to try to get to the hack-a-Mitch strategy. Good if they were already at the limit and tried that, but they weren't at the limit. I just didn't think that was a prudent move on the Celtics coach's part.
Yeah, honestly, you're absolutely right. The Knicks are not a team that rely solely on their bigs to have an advantage on the glass or to even have a defensive advantage, right? You see Bridges having the big block at the end of game 2. Josh Hart, exactly, Kev, you're one step ahead of me here. So, you know, the tactical advantage there for Boston to actually be able to justify that is that you're getting a big out of the game. You're basically forcing the Knicks' hand by taking him out so he doesn't have to shoot free throws. But that doesn't phase the Knicks the way it would phase a lot of other teams. And so I'm with you. Why would you give the Knicks any sort of mental advantage at the end in exchange for forcing them to do something that they're fairly comfortable doing relative to other teams? You know, so I think that might have been a case where, you know, if the Celtics, I don't watch every Celtic game. I don't claim to. Why would I? But if this is something they traditionally do against other teams, you know, it's just a case of, you know, this is just, we are a championship team. This is what we do. And well, I think that's a dumb strategy. At least it would justify it. But if you thought for some reason this was particularly effective against the Knicks, you're right. That is bad coaching.
I'm hopeful, but, you know, closetedly hopeful.
It's not about hope.
It's not about hope, Kilroy. You know that.
Tommy.
I actually don't have much to say here.
That's a man who understands we're coming up on the time limit. Tommy. He got the assignment.
Truthfully, I don't have much to say here. I'll be honest.
Go, all right. Bring this thing home. I got a Wolves game to go watch.
Ditto.
Thank you all so much for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. Why hope is not the answer.
Yikes! Yikes! Why is Kilroy wrong? That's your assignment.
Good night.
Love you all. There's hope.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
It's not about